What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Dust2 report. I think we're still trying to name shop this title. Liam, you did a little thing today. You got some crowdsourced opinions on it, so still a work in progress on the name. But I have Liam Slevin here, who's reporting in live at Cologne. You've been there this past week. We've had a lot of action that we've been seeing. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to go and cover since our last podcast episode. So first of all, been through the week. You're kind of in this 4-day break. You tired yet? You feeling the event grind?
I'm really glad that there was a break. 4 days is a bit long, I think. I think we did most of our kind of touristy stuff over the last 2 days, kind of like reset because the hotel's super, super nice, but I think we had like 2 hours of daylight and like an hour like each day actually in the hotel that we weren't
Oh,
sleeping.
jeez.
So yeah, like long days, but it's just been such an experience. There was like only a few people from different press outlets, like most of them were HLTV and like Dust2 connected. So it was super cool getting to like see the players, see the talent that was there like on site because I think the B Stream guys were in Bratislava, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that was like where their office was based. So it's just been awesome, like getting to see the teams, like the way that they celebrate, like the way that like you can clearly see the disappointment when a team gets knocked out, even if they're like kind of expected to go out at that stage. So
Yeah.
like it's just been such an experience. It's been awesome so far.
That's good. I know when I was doing the Rio Major, it literally was like 12-hour long days. Like you're in there, you're eating, like, to be honest, you're eating crap food. It's not that fun. It's not that good. And it's like fast food everywhere and you feel like you're gaining weight and it's disgusting, but it's like just so exciting and there's a lot of energy. Um, all right, so we should talk about a lot of different things. I think first we should talk about some domestic stuff. We'll briefly go over ECL relegation because it's still happening now as we're doing this. So when we release this, which might be probably tomorrow or the next day, because today is Wednesday at like 2 o'clock Eastern time. Um, Bad News Bears are through. Team One is through, and Davenport notably is out. So you're having ECL again. We're going to see Bad News Bears and Team One. I think everyone knew that they were favored to go through. Bad News Bears have had like a historically poor like time at the top level. Team One has they removed XNS. Malbs played for them in the last season. He's playing relegation. They're now like trying to get Barton potentially on loan. Like, what are your thoughts on Barton coming in to try and help Team One? Do you think that's going to be like a useful addition?
Yeah, I think Burton could certainly add something to Team One. I think they kind of impressed previously, but they kind of fell off towards like the end of the season. I think that like they're one of those names that like has to be around the ECL level. It's the same with Bad News Bears. Like I think if they did get relegated this season, it would be like a massive disappointment for the guys that are there. Like Jake Zula obviously does so much for the scene in terms like the talent that he brings up. So I think it wouldn't be as beneficial to the way he kind of builds teams if he was down in advance next season. But in terms of Burton, I think he could definitely add something to Team One if he is brought in. Um, I think, yeah, like hopefully next season that they don't have this issue of going down to relegation because there's certainly some talent on that team. So yeah, hopefully like he can add something to that team.
Yeah, certainly it'll be interesting. Team One's got a lot of work to do. They were like always kind of this top North American Brazilian team. I feel like they've been struggling a little bit lately. They've been getting outclassed by Payne, who was much more under there. Furia as well has kind of just widened that gap from them. So hopefully, as an organization, I mean, I like the organization. I like the guys that have been there. They have players like TRK who played with the like that big MIR team, and now he's back there. So overall, a solid group of players. I think everyone knew that they were going to advance, and they did it in a very convincing fashion. We'll see that go through. Davenport, kind of interesting that they fell so quickly. Like they went just straight out. A little bit worrying. However, I think what is going to add to their benefit is how they're changing up that roster next season. We have the addition of Sonic. Spec is one of the brightest spots on that team. He's been in our Dust2 team of the month for like the last 2 months. Like very, very strong player, one to really watch out for. And then they have like a Finnish Swisher, not to be confused with American Swisher. Um, so we'll see how that team formulates. I think they'll be a force to be reckoned with, and hopefully they don't have to play relegation. Hopefully they can get an auto move up. Um, yeah, and so that's kind of that. I know we could talk about it more, but I think that we have better things to go on to, meaning we should be talking about Cologne. Now,
Yeah.
we've had our like mini recaps every day during the live stream. You haven't been there because you've been doing our live reporting on the ground, but let's talk about Cologne overall. So the play in. play-in seemed incredibly chaotic. A lot of BR teams have been there. There were like 5 of them. It was Imperial, MIBR, Zero Zero Nation, Furia. Furia wasn't in the play-in, but
Furia was main
Pain,
stage, yeah.
yeah, and then Pain was in there. Um, they they all struggled. What do we take away from 4 Brazilian teams coming into this play-in and really kind of not impressing? Except for Zero Zero Nation. I'll say they impressed, but we
Yeah.
should talk about how like they didn't really move on.
I think in terms of like the Brazilians that were there, like I think Brazil has had a really strong finish to the season. Like in terms of like when they were coming into this tournament, there was 5 teams in the top 30. Like so that is something very positive going into the future. And like team one isn't even in the top 30, so it's just the 5 teams that were there. So I think like I don't think it's time to be worried, like just based on this tournament. Like it's the end of the season. Like we know that there's gonna be changes coming in that Brazilian scene anyways, with like the that Godsent and Zero Zero Nation kind of shake up, there's still good players to be like picked up by teams there. And like from when I was
Right.
talking to like Brazilians over here, it seems like there's going to be more kind of like teams coming out of this, even like outside of these kind of 5. Like we could see players linking up that are outside, like Phelps is still around, BSM is still around, like they can get out of those contracts. So I think Brazil is in a really good spot at the moment. It's obviously disappointing that none of them made it to the playoffs, but I think in terms of the ones that were at the play-in, like I think Pain are good. I just don't think they're ready for Tier One EU. Like they do have really good results back at home, but they haven't had enough time in Europe, in my opinion. Like even talking to Big Azera, like he said that he's like he kind of gets nervous when he plays in these big games. Like they're not like I don't think they're ready for the stage, but I definitely think they have the potential for it. Zero Zero Nation really impressed me. They were one of my bright spots for this tournament, despite
Oh,
kind of
absolutely.
yeah, despite kind of like getting they got a tough draw for the group stage. Like they had Phase and a new look Liquid with the Yekinder. So
Yeah.
like from talking to Taco and Cold, like they're super excited about the future of this team because like we have the Cold quote like we'll just let the kids tear people's heads off or however he worded it. Like they do seem very excited for it, and I think the biggest thing with Zero Zero Nation kind of coming together and like formulating a really solid roster is if you can get Cold out of that calling mentality, he can just focus on his own game. We don't need 2016, 2017 Cold Zerix. That guy is
Right.
gone, like, which is fine. Like, it happens. Like, it's years ago. But if you can get like a really solid kind of veteran rifler who knows like how to like elevate the talents around him, like the younger kids coming up, like I think that roster has the potential to be very special.
Well, that's kind of
Um,
like what you were even saying. Yeah. What one of the strategies that the Zero Zero Nation had was to just let the kids play, let the kids shoot heads, and you're gonna have Taco and Colzera kind of guiding them through this. I think that was kind of the big move as well when you had when with Zero Zero Nation bringing over a lot of people from Godsent. You had the 3 player, obviously at the core, and then you brought over the coach. They brought over like some backroom staff, and it's like, okay, are they just acquiring like that entire organization for this? um Godsent was already a really solid project. Kind of sad to see them die, kind of weird to see players like Barton and Henny not kind of shifting over. They kept Try, which we thought was interesting, but Try really showed up. Do you want to talk a little bit about his performance at Cologne?
yeah, like I think Try is like he's going to be very important to this roster when they kind of get the chance. Like I think this offseason is going to be a good chance for them to kind of like figure out what they want to be as a team and like how they're gonna like play
Yeah.
because like they've when I was talking to them like they had like very little time to practice together, which is like the results that
Understandable.
they were pulling out like beating Imperial is like a good result because like as much as people kind of rag on Imperial of like the last dance or whatever, like
All
they had
right,
a good
no,
run at
I
no like
I have to fight. Come on, you can't. Imperial has not necessarily been doing that well.
no, but that's what I mean. Like their results like haven't been great against like tier one teams, but they're well capable of beating these tier two teams or teams that are like on the cusp of like breaking through to tier one. So like I think Imperial should have been able to close it out against like a very new look team, considering how long that they've been together compared to like how fast this team was put together.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised by the result. Like I had Zero Zero Nation predicted. Like I think they're more impressive on paper, but like in terms of like the organization of that team, that's more what I'm saying. But yeah, in terms of Try, like I got the chance to talk to him as well. Very, very quiet guy. He just seems like very like reserved when speaking English at least. But like he seems
Well,
to be
it's
accepting.
gotta be hard, right? I mean, we can't ask all these like South
Oh yeah,
American players to come in and be speaking English. It's gotta
no,
be
no, of
difficult.
course, but I mean, like, even, like, Big as Air, when I was talking to him, he was like he seemed very uncomfortable at the start speaking English, but, like, he's very, like, outgoing anyways as a personality, like, Try is, like,
Yeah,
17, he's a young guy, but, like, incredibly talented, and I think, like, from talking to Cold, he said that, like, Try is really excited to play with, the duo that they brought over, and they seem to have a lot of confidence in Taco as an IGL, which is, like, very promising as well, considering, like, Taco isn't
yeah,
traditionally known to be an IGL, but like you can obviously see like as a support player being at the top tier for so long, like he wasn't a star player like Gold. I think star players calling is always a difficult thing because they're very focused on their own stats and stuff as well.
yeah.
So like Cold's used to like that superstar mentality that from years ago. Like we obviously haven't seen that Cold in a while, but I like it never kind of leaves you. It's the same with like Nico when he was calling it phase towards the end. Like I think it's better for like a
They're
support
like
player like
putting
that
themselves
to
first.
transition over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So like I'm excited to see what Taco does with this team because he seems very invested in it. Like in like all the interviews, even with like the Portuguese ones, they were telling me that they're like, these are my guys, like these are my players, like I want to do what's best for them, which is very like important for an IGL to be like very kind of giving in that sense.
yeah. I think we also should talk about. I mean, like Zero Zero Nation came in and they beat Astralis like just excuse my French, fucking trounced them
Yeah.
16-6 on that first one. You could say this is like new team, like what is it? It's like new team buff. Like no one knows who they are, and that's how they're able to come in. But you have Taco and Coldzera bottom fragging in that one, at least on their team, and you just see a team that looks so strong. Now, obviously, they went down. They lost to Spirit, which was tough. That was a 2-1, which honestly probably could have gone either way. That last map, Ancient, like that could have been it could have been a 0-0 nation that we saw go 2-0 through and qualify right through immediately. Like that is it's interesting to see how close that you can have some of these teams beating European competition even when they're so new. And I guess the question we have here is do we think that even though it is the core of Godsent, who has weirdly been inconsistent, like is are they finding their groove now with Cold Zero and Try? Like is this are we gonna see a 0-0 nation that is gonna be a top three Brazilian team or a top two Brazilian team?
I definitely think so. Like even considering like when you look back at the results from Valencia where they had their first outing, like they beat Furia 2-0. So like there's clearly a lot of confidence going through that team at the moment. They're very prepared for like that like new team buff that you kind of get, like the honeymoon period as we call it. So I think the most important thing for them is you had the honeymoon period just before the player break. Don't get complacent. Like it should be like you get your break, but like even towards like the end of the player break, you should be back to work and like pushing on. And I think that's
Yeah.
the problem with a lot of teams that are like at the moment. Like if you're having good form coming into this period, like Mao's, I said it earlier today in the piece that I did with Maui Snake and Moses. Like I think Mao's really needs to be one of those teams as well. And there's like other examples of it where you can't get complacent going into a player break because we saw like biggest victim of a situation like that was Liquid back in
Yeah.
2019. They had like the player break is notoriously the thing that killed that team. So
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting now when we talk about Liquid and the player break. The player break might actually be the thing that saves this team, and it might be another thing that saves like complexity, which we can talk about much more in depth later. But like Liquid is very fascinating here because and this is looking back on it, it's very funny to see the reactions of Liquid, myself included. Obviously, NA propagandists right here. This is what we do. This is how we make a living. But so you have YEKINDAR coming in. Oh, they asked JKS and they asked for snacks. For snacks, for some reason, they couldn't come. I think it was the 120-day rule. Like
yeah,
you're not allowed to do the ESCA events. Unclear how this thing happened, but it didn't work out. And then JKS wasn't going to happen. Complexity wanted a fee. Liquid was like, we're not going to pay a fee. We don't want to deal with this. Fine. YEKINDAR was a 5% chance, like 48 hours before the deadline. 24 hours before the deadline, that moved up to like a 10% chance. And then right the day of the deadline, it was like, it's approved. It like came through. Virtus Pro was like, yeah, fine. We won't stand in your way. Go have fun. And like, it was like, fuck yeah. Um, with that, there was a lot of hype, obviously. Do we feel that YEKINDAR has lived up to the hype of being a stand-in at Liquid in order for Liquid to make playoffs? To be at this team where you saw 8 of the top 10 teams not make it to this stage?
Mm.
and now you're playing against Movistar riders. Like, do you think that Liquid has like done it to the point of we've done everything that like should have been expected of us with Yakinder, or do you think that like with the semifinals appearance, like they have exceeded all complete expectations, or is that still the new like minimum that they should have?
I'm gonna hold off on my Movistar Riders talk for the playoff preview, but in terms of Liquid, um, I don't know because like Liquid was like they made it through and like before like I know I had my jokes that Liquid were gonna like go all the way in our Discord and stuff and like they were gonna win it. But I think realistically before it I would have set the expectation to make playoffs at least because I think when you look at the players on that roster, even if this is like a short term thing, like those names are just gonna work like in terms of firepower. Like you
Right.
have three top 20 riflers, like the best young opper, and like Nitro, who's just been doing solid as like a IGL who can put games up on the board. Like I think the first game of the team, like Nitro was like leading the scoreboard on Dust 2. So like that's a positive sign for a team that's just looking for a playoff run.
Yeah.
I think they're more than capable of making semifinals, but the thing for me with Liquid is we obviously know that there's the drawbacks with Virtus Pro being like a sanctioned org and how you actually get Ykinder out of there. But hypothetically, if you do get Ykinder, I think there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be put in to make it work. And I know how that sounds considering like the results that they have.
Yeah.
But the problem for me is that like throughout their run, you always had one of those players going missing, whether it was Elige. Like Elige said that he's comfortable taking these different roles and like learning how to be a different player.
Mhm.
Yakinder had a map where I think he was like 0 and 10 at like
He
the
was like
10 round
he
mark.
was
Like
like 0 and 13 through like 15 rounds. It was so bad.
yeah. So
It was so
like
bad.
he's your stand-in and you're trying to slot him in and make him as comfortable as possible. And if he's having games like that, there's clearly something that needs to change with the system. But I think it's just such a promising roster on paper.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I had was how do you make everyone shine? Because like as great as it is to have a young player like Yakinder, you don't want to kind of stunt the growth of OC, who's like an aggressive,
But I
explosive
don't think that
offer.
I don't think that you're stunting the growth of OC. I think if anything, you're actually helping the growth of OC. That I mean, the interviews that we've seen come out through HLTV, through Dust2, like we've heard it. We've heard Yakinder's like he's coming in with this new voice. OC now apparently has had a revolution of an attitude. He's like
Hmm.
he was like demotivated with Shocks because Shocks had one foot almost out the door for like months because he was missing his kid. It looked like a dead team on creation almost. Like it was crazy. Like, did you even like there were things that came out in the twit longer and like other stuff is like he was supposed to go to America. His family was supposed to go rent a house. Never rented a house. Never got the kid into this French speaking LA school. None of these things that he said were ever going to happen. Like none of them happened. So right then, you know that this is like not going to work out long term, but he was tried it out and stuck it out. Obviously, if you're a star opera that comes into this team and this is your tier one opportunity, you're going to be demotivated when the star European player that you bring in doesn't even look like he's putting in the effort of what he said to do to join your team.
Um,
So, like,
yeah,
that's how I see like, and Yikinder's coming in and he's like, listen, I can see he's talking more, he's doing all these things, he seems to be really invested. Like, I think that this is an opportunity for OC to unlock a second level that we know he's capable of.
the way that I meant it was more in the sense of like, does this take away from the space that he gets? Because when you're trying to accommodate players like that, like you have Naf, Elige, Yakinder, three super like very very good riflers. Where do you get the opportunity to put OC in? Say like go get a pick here. Like it's I'm talking about like the balance of like having all four players be comfortable in like what they do. And I think like Naf gave a good kind of response to me when I was talking to him. Like he said that you have these three aggressive players in Yakinder, OC, and Elige. Me and Nick need to realize that we need to take a step back. So I think if you can make that work, if you have the two supportive elements, like we saw Nitro have like very good like clutch rounds at the major, if he can find like a way to just get comfortable and consistent doing that, like you know that NAF is going to be clutch either way.
Yeah.
But I think that's just my only concern because like there was the same problem on phase if you go back to like the super team, like when it was Guardian,
Yeah.
Nico, Rain. When you're trying to accommodate all those players, someone's going to lose some shine. Like it took years for people to kind of realize, okay, Rain is actually an insane rifler just because he's alongside Nico. That's the only thing that I have. Like other than that, like I'm super happy with this team,
I,
and I hope it can actually stay together.
I mean, if this team stays together, I genuinely think it might be the best formulation of a North American roster that we've ever had. Genuinely might be. It will be better. Like right now, honestly, I think that this is a better roster than the Cloud9 team that won the major. Like
Oh,
fundamentally,
definitely.
and like you're saying, you have these aggressive players, right? OC we've seen just become more and more aggressive in Cologne, like insanely aggressive. He's taking these angles that should not be angles. He's pushed right up there. He's currently the leading clutcher at Cologne. He's being aggressive and at the same time he's willing to not just save but take these plays that he probably shouldn't have to be taking. Like I'm just thinking back to the Furia game on Ancient. Like he's taking 1v3s like by himself, like, I mean, or it's like 2v4s or whatever, but there's like three players on a bomb site. He's only there. And he's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to go out and do something. Like, fuck it. We ball. It's, I don't know what it is. There's a liquid here that has some swagger finally. And it's amazing to see. It's nice to see. And something that I'm hoping that this team continues to have. What I have found interesting though, because I hope you've noticed this as well during the games, Yekinder, he's aggressive, but then he also seems to becoming this lurker, like really weirdly. Like he's going ahead and he's like, I'm just gonna go to the A site. All of you guys go to B on overpass, and I'm just gonna like mess around, throw some flashes, make it look like I'm the entry, draw the attention, and then you guys go hit B. I'll sacrifice my life. I don't have to be the first one in on B. I'll be this one that's just gonna stay around and mess around with the other team. And then the same thing, we saw him when he got undone in that match against Spirit, right? When he was like, I'm gonna make the big brain, like go all the way over play, and he lost the round. Like he's been doing that. Like, how
Yeah.
do we think that is he adjusting more? And I think Daniel from Dust2, he has a piece coming on about it as well, trying to compare the positions between Elige and with Shocks and Yekinder, and then seeing how if they've really been moving positions with Elige. Like, do we really think that Elige has adapted at all, or do we think that Yekinder is adapting, and that's how this team's actually able to become better?
I think with Yakinder, they seem to have given him a lot of freedom, and like I think that's what you kind of should do with a stand-in as good as Yakinder, because like we obviously know that like he's got a very like explosive entry style, but he's also like just a very smart player, like the way he plays out rounds. And like I had the chance to go over to the booth where they were several times. A lot of the time, like it's like a 50-50 split between him and Nitro talking. So like he does have like a strong voice in the team even like during the games. It's not like they're just like in the server beforehand practicing or like the night before practicing. Like on the server, like he is calling and he's like he clearly knows what he wants to do, which is good to have a strong voice like that, especially considering like I like Nitro as an IGL, but you also have to take into account the fact that he was in Valorant for a year. Like that's a long time to be away from a
Yeah.
game, especially as an IGL in terms of meta. So I think it's really helpful for him to have Yekinder, like, because we heard the same thing about Shocks. Like, Shocks said in interviews, like, I know Nitro needs a bit of help with calling, so I try to be vocal. And it's good for, like, a guy like Yekinder to kind of know what he wants, especially when he is, like, I think he was, like, the 8th ranked player in the world last year. So that's just, like, a really good thing to have for, like, just give him some free reign. Let him, like, if he wants to do, like, the lurky job and, like, just cause chaos on the other side of the map, let him do it. Like, he has the intuition to do it, so.
I think that's the other big part here is that you have players like Yekinder even came in and was like, you guys are like so behind the meta. Like, he's like, what are you guys doing? Do you have any idea what's going on? Do I have to teach you all of these new things? Which, like, I think that's more worrying about NA, that if your best team is miles behind a meta, like, we're screwed. What is like, how do you have one stand-in come in here and tell us we're all behind the meta? Why are we not advancing above the meta? What's happening that we don't have this? You're a multi-million dollar organization. How are you so behind the meta that you have to have a stand-in from a sanctioned Russian organization come in and 3 days later just go, yeah, this all sucks? Like, it's troubling and concerning that this is where we're at right now.
I mean, if he was there a bit longer, I'm pretty sure Malik would have told EG that they were behind the meta, but I don't think he got the chance. But
Malik didn't have the chance. Malik got in and then got handed his walking papers like 2 days later. Like that, he got handed his walking papers the second that he decided when he wanted to try and take Stewie out to Starbucks. Like Jesus Christ. Fucking.
so uncalled for.
Oh my god. I don't even okay. We should though try and dive more a little bit into Brazil here. Brazil being a little bit in trouble. As overall they've been behind the curve lately. ESL Valencia was a disaster for Brazilian teams. They finished all in the bottom. Nothing is going right. Every team's kind of ending on a down note, except for Zero Zero Nation. They're the only team that's like looking like they're stepping above expectations. Furia has had massive skids in IEM Dallas, Rubat, and now Cologne. You're having Pain, which went out 0-2 in the Cologne qualifiers and looked to be a level below what they should be. You have MIBR, who again struggled and they got bounced out by Tai Lu, of all people. Like Tai Lu, I get they came back from like or they did like some month-long boot camp in Europe, but no,
Lu.
it's Tai Lu. You should not be losing to Tai Lu. Like that is like credit to Tai Lu. Awesome upset. Very supportive of that. But like MIBR, they've had these roster issues. They've had these troubles. How are they doing it? And then the last dance, Eminem's Jeff, he wrote an article about this, which I think we're literally going to be releasing soon. So by the time that I'm talking about this, everyone can see. He has a line in here that I want to just say, and he goes, Imperial have settled into a rut that matches what the most pessimistic pundits envisioned for Fallen's Last Dance squad. After rolling back the years of the major, Imperial have done little to demonstrate that they are a serious title contender, even among their Brazilian colleagues. It's a damning statement of Imperial, who, besides the major, have not looked to be a force anywhere else. Like, since that major, every team, and even at the major, Furia did not really necessarily impress. They got to the quarters by the skin of their teeth, and they seemed like they just kind of went out. Like it didn't feel like this was Furia's major where they could be a dark horse to win. Like, do you have feelings about Brazil? I mean, they had 5 teams in Cologne, and you only have the one that reached just the furthest was like 0-0. It was Furia.
Yeah.
Like, there's got to be some concern now here heading into the player break and potentially a Brazilian shuffle.
Yeah, like so like there's a lot to like kind of digest there with like the 5 teams. I think for me, I would be concerned about 2 of them maybe
And those
because
are
MIB or an Imperial.
okay.
I think Zero Zero Nation, we've already talked enough about them and their like roster move. Like they need this off season to kind of like bounce back, and like kind of like settle into what they want their game to be. Imperial, my biggest issue with Imperial team, just don't pay them a tier 1 salary at this stage of their careers. Like it's fine. Like people say to me like, "Oh, like they don't need to be like competing against like the top teams. Then why are you paying them like they should be competing with the top teams?" Like they beat Cloud9, like a dismal Cloud9 at the major. That was like the biggest scalp that they took.
Right.
Um,
But
like
well,
here
hold
at
on.
the play-in,
But here's the thing. They got lucky because they fucked up the veto. Remember that?
I don't know. I think Cloud9, even fucking up a veto against Imperial, should still be like this is a Cloud9 that we were talking as like a dark horse to win the major. So
That's true. That is true. That
like
is true.
at the play-in, they beat Order. Order took a map off them. They lost at Rubet to Mao's and Eternal Fire. Like they haven't won a best of 3 series. I'm scrolling. They haven't won a best of 3 series since the major. There's no
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, best of 3. The last time they won was at the major and Order. Like
They
until
should
that point.
they should have as much criticism as Complexity does.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think like
I feel vindicated.
because like I never like I was never on board with this roster anyways. Like
I
my
I
my
I swept into the Kool-Aid at the major. I believed in it. I thought the
I
one-off
didn't.
performance was enough. I
Like
still can believe in them. It's hard. It's really, really hard.
they're in the top 20, which is fine, but like if that's just where you want them to be, then like there's so many more teams that like should be paid what they're paid. And I obviously understand there's plenty of marketing behind that team, the history that they have, like that's fine, but I just don't think we should be talking about them as a top contender because it's just completely outrageous at this point. Like FNX, like he's just securing like the easiest bag anyone has in their career. Like he's been dismal in this lineup, and like I don't think that's unfair to say. But MIBR, very disappointing kind of end to the season. Like maybe they switched some things up, but like they really struggled at Valencia. They really struggled here. They did well at conference, but like they beat Tyloo, like and they lost to Tyloo here.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of the other teams, Furia for me is the one where I'm probably gonna have to disagree with you with.
Okay.
I don't think there's a reason to worry about Furia. I think Furia showed enough up until the major, like top eight at the majors, top eight at the major.
Fine.
Top,
I'll give
top
you top
four,
eight in the
top four
major.
at Dallas, and they had top four at Pro League. And like from talking to Gehi, like he said that like especially with Quesarado, like he's taken a lot of the hit from the public in terms of their bad form. I
Yeah.
think they're the team that are going to benefit the most from this player break. Like they're going to go
Okay.
away. They're they're talented professionals. Like we know how good that core can be. Like if I think the biggest thing with them over the player break is something needs to change in terms of their tactics because I love the way Art plays. I love the way Art calls. It's not working anymore, man. Like it's
But I
very
so
telegraphed.
it's the counter argument here is that Art's hyper aggressive play style usually has been good. The problem is they haven't really been implementing that as much in their recent games. It seems to be like they're playing to not lose rather than playing like the old Furia has been, which can be the issue here. And I think Art even said it in one of these interviews. He's like, we need to stop treating all of these, other opponents with respect. Like
Yeah,
we have to know who we are. We have to play like the Furia that will have a Mac 10 and just run it down your goddamn throat. Like that is what Furia was famous for and always famous for. For them to have changed this up in this way is, I think, causing problems. And it might still be like needing to figure out what safe is like, needing to figure out how the current meta is playing, needing to, kind of adjust it. But and I agree with you, this player break they'll benefit from, but they need to figure it out. You're going to be going to Brazil, and we're playing the major in Brazil. This is the time. This is it. Like this is going to be the pinnacle event. This is everything that they are working for this year. They have to be fully focused on the Brazil major. And if they are not able to do well at the Brazilian major, it'll be a damning indictment of this team, and changes, like something changes will have to be made because they're the best Brazilian team by far and away. And if they cannot perform and they can't get that good run of form at the Brazilian major, that's tragic. It's gonna be tragic.
yeah. Like I'm fine with that as a statement. I think like if they bomb at Rio, there will need to be changes. But like that's still a ways away, and we still have like I think I don't know if they're at Blast, but like we
So
still have
is
tournaments
it hold
before
on.
that in the
So
or
but
more.
but here's the problem. Here's the problem that I have. Is it that far away when we seriously think about it? It's not.
It's
You
not,
have
but they
you
have
have
a
the
player
player
break in
break,
between. So
right, but you have okay, so you have the player break ending when? August like 14th. It's like middle of August, right? It's something like that. It's like in August. Okay. Then the RMRs are going to be happening like a month and a half later. And then you're going to have the major happening at the end of October. So that's like 2 months. So you really have 2 months to really figure out where you're going to be as a team. I don't see that as a lot of time. That's what's giving me the biggest worry here is that they're going to have the player break. If they can't figure it out at the player break, they don't have a whole lot of time to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like that's it's coming up quick, and a lot of people aren't, I don't
yeah,
think, noticing it. Like it's happening faster than we really think it is.
yeah. Like I can agree with that. I think it's just for me. Like I don't see too much to worry about. It all depends on how they work this player break. Like if they go away, get their heads right, and get back to the drawing board, and like there's enough firepower on this team that you don't like. Off the top of my head, there isn't a player that like fits into this and makes them instantly better
Right.
in like the short time that we do have. Like I think there's enough talent in this roster and like the way that they formulate it. So like I'm not worried about Furia. If they struggle to get through the Oromora considering like the standard of the Oromora at the moment,
But
then
it
I'd
also
be
depends
concerned.
which RMR do we think that they're going to go through. Remember how it's
Oh
so
yeah.
weird what the RMRs are, right? How many Brazilian teams are going to go to the Brazilian RMR? How many Brazilian teams are going to go to the Americas RMR? Because they saw what happened with Godsent in the Americas RMR, but Godsent probably would have been a shoe in or the South American RMR. So it's going to be interesting, right? There are 8 spots available, and you probably are going to have MIBR probably stay in the North American one. Team one will stay in the North American one. But Zero Zero Nation, they're kind of really based out of Europe. Should they go to the South American one? Would be easier for them to go do it. Like, they'll be one of the better teams. They'll know that they'll get a guaranteed spot right through it. Like, it's I it's gonna be interesting to see how these RMRs come up and which like organizations and teams are like, this is our event. This is the one that we're gonna choose.
Yeah.
Which I also believe is a full indictment that we should like change the way that we have these RMRs, because I think it's going to be a little ridiculous that you can have a bunch of Brazilian teams going ahead saying we can choose if we want to do the North or South American. And like, I think that you should just have North American teams pitch together, get an air fucking B&B for a weekend, bring their PCs and go fuck around in the South American RMR if it's looking like all the, all the bigger Brazilian
Uh,
teams are loading up in the NA one. You know what I mean? Like,
I want to see EG announce that they're sending one of the 50, like one of the teams to like the Oceanic region or something. Like, this is the only
oh
way
my
they'll qualify.
god, I forgot. You're not even going to have party astronauts. You're not even going to have Carpe Diem. So you have 2 of them are gone. So the NA qualifier is automatically going to be weaker. That's great. Fucking go send Cirque, Breeze, Valde, I guess, because Stu is just who the hell knows what's happening
I
there.
heard that he's gone to XSET now. Very
Oh
good
yeah, the
from
exit.
social media manager.
This is
XSET.
so not part of like the Brazil in trouble section, but should we just talk about like that whole saga? Can we talk about that whole saga for like 5 seconds? Because I think it's
Valorant in trouble.
I think it's hilarious because like it was a dumb tweet because they used their own commercial partners in this joke tweet. But the thing that really like kind of pissed me off was that I saw like the guy that did the tweet. Like, listen, I don't condone hate sending to the guy that did the tweet, but he was like, wow, I can't believe everyone's really angry about this tweet. It was meant to be a joke between me and Stewie. And it's like, that's not what happens when you run a corporate account. That's not a joke between you and Stewie. You represent the fans of your brand, and you could do it yourself. That would have been funny. That would have been okay. But you're representing a company. You can't do that, my man. And I'm like losing my mind.
Yeah, like if you did it off the personal, like the tweet would pop, like you would be getting your
Yeah.
clout. It's great. Like no one's gonna care. It's off your personal account. Just don't do it from the company account. Like, and the responses were like the worst part about that whole saga. Like, oh my god, bro! Like it was just a joke, bro. Come get your man's. Like, just shut up. Like,
It's
so
I
sick. I'm so sick of the scene. So
I
sick of
hate
esports.
I'm over social media managers. We have no
Yeah,
more capacity for social media managers. We don't need them.
the
Okay.
never-ending war between social media managers and journalists continues.
Okay, let's talk about complexity.
Great.
Yeah, really, really livening up the podcast here. So complexity. Oh, complexity.
Where do you start?
Lucas has an article that's coming out. It's going to be really fun to he actually has some interesting ones here to talk about complexity. So as we all know, complexity, like, they have to make a change. They have to make a change. Now, is it an IGL change? I don't know. I don't think so. I think JT is a revolutionary IGL. I think that he can certainly play. I think the problem is that they need to change. They need to change the opera. They need to change Junior. I like Junior as a person. I think he's a great person. I think he's been. I think he just got messed up after the Furia thing. He needs to go back down. His bad news bears like venture should have been longer. He needs to be there for much more time. He can't. He just can't handle it for some reason at this upper level, and it's just not working in the way that like they want it to work, because that JT led extra salt with OC as the opper were dominant. They were so strong. The biggest factor leaving is OC leaving. To replace OC, you need a like for like replacement on OC style. Junior is not an OC style. He's just not. And I think that they have to look elsewhere for an opper that will be a similar style to OC. I also don't think that it would hurt to have someone else on that team that can be a caller, that could have much more insight into mid round plays. Um, and I think that's the biggest issues that are affecting uh, complexity right now.
Yeah. Um, I think it's difficult with complexity because if you have a team that's performed like this for 6 months, I generally say that there should be two changes, but the issue is. I don't know where you make that second change, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Because like the other guys are like they're doing fine. Like I guess like all of them are kind of rattled in terms of confidence at the moment. So like maybe just not having to like worry about that inconsistent opera that everyone is bashing will probably help their
Which
confidence a bit more.
also is so ridiculous from this community that they just wanted to latch on and pile onto Junior. We get it. He isn't performing up to standard. But holy shit, just the outpouring of hate onto this kid because you don't like his quotes in an article is some melted brain level shit.
But in terms of like who you go out and get in the NA scene, I don't think there's anyone up to standard at the moment that isn't named OC, and like you just lost him to Liquid, so he's locked in. Like he's not going anywhere. Um, I was smiling there when you said you need another voice and an opera, and complexity fallen. Can we get on board? Nah, I'm
Oh
just
my
joking.
god.
I'm just yeah. Maybe like an MSL or a KD and bring him back
Oh my
so that he
god. Okay,
enjoyed
Katie,
NA.
listen, in MSL, I don't in
I don't actually
MSL
hate the idea of
actually
MSL.
actually now that you said that that actually it's not the most terrible opinion I've ever heard in my life. I
No, like
think like but it's I don't know if it's a great opinion, but like having a veteran voice in a team full of young kids, okay, I could get on board. The other logical option here is Dexter if you're really going to swing for the fences and really try and get what you can get, right?
wow.
Dexter, listen, I've converted.
You
Mike and
see,
that
me
I
me and
converted, all
Mike had
right?
to convince you.
You and Mike had to convince me of this. Dexter is probably the most likely and most logical choice if you're going to go out and get one of the best offers that you can that's available on the market, right? You go out, you relocate him from Russia where he's living in Moscow and whatever. You get him and his girlfriend a nice apartment in downtown Dallas, and you get him a car and you say you drive out to the complexity like arena, you learn how to drive in the US or we'll pay for your Ubers or whatever, but you get them the hell out there and you figure this out of how to make this team an extra step because that's what you could do. That's what you would need. Um so that's the logical one there. It's I don't know.
Yeah,
The other options, Wolfie was an option that in this article. I don't hate the idea. I don't think that's thinking big enough for a team like Complexity.
yeah, I
Like
agree.
if this team is getting invites to go all over the world and play competitively, then Complexity needs to go out and pay for a player that is on a world level. Like that's the standard here. That's what the standard that you have to meet and they're just not.
Yeah, like I think you solve a lot of your problems if you get an offer who's confident and consistent. Because like from talking to TC, like we had like a really interesting chat about like what has been going wrong. Like he said to me, he's like, it feels like we've tried everything, and at this point, it's like putting a band-aid on the problem. Like they've
Yeah.
tried different positions with like every player that like, and even the way he was describing like the way that they lose, he's like, it doesn't seem like the system is failing us. It seems like we're just missing easy shots because of confidence, and like we're worried about like where like the next kill is going to come from. So I think like it's just going to be a weird off season, like because I don't like Dexter makes sense, but Complexity have already thrown so much money at the problem with like the former Juggernaut lineup. How much more is Jason Lake willing to go with this? Like, because like this
Right.
roster was not an expensive like
The
it was
other
not an
the only other thing here too is right like if you want to go ahead and really like make it work, are you gonna bring back JKS and put him in play and like do a 6 man and maybe place him in instead of like Grim or Fang? Like, does it work? Who knows? Are you gonna try? Like, are you completely giving up on on what this team is? You know what I mean? Like,
see.
I get that you want to be in the Americans here and you can keep the All American roster, but like, let's figure it out.
Yeah, like I don't mind the idea of bringing JKS back in, like and rotating players around and figuring something out in the offseason, especially if you still have him on the payroll. I just don't know like if he solves the issue at complexity because I think there's like so much wrong at the moment. Like I think confidence across the board, not even just junior. Like when I was talking to the guys there, they all just seemed so down. They were like so depressed
Well,
about like
how
the
are
way
you
that
going to
things
be
were going.
happy after losing 11 series in a row and
But that's
finishing
what I mean.
last at
Like
every single event since the major? Like, they've
yeah, I
been
know, but like
crying
you do
out for
need
this break.
you do need to still have some positivity, and I know it's easier said than done, especially when you're like you're a young team, you're all young guys that are getting like your first real opportunity at tier one.
Right.
But like it just seemed like before they went onto the server, they knew that they were gonna lose, which is kind of like it's kind of sad. Like it's like
They're dead at this point.
yeah, like
They're dead.
yeah, like I don't know. I think it's gonna be interesting in the off season, but I don't know who exactly is the quick fix for complexity.
I don't think there is a quick fix. I think no matter who they get, it's going to be a thing that they need to figure out here. Okay, let's move on to our playoff preview. We're going to go ahead and now look at the playoff brackets that we have for Cologne. We've got to see that Movistar Riders is going to be playing against Liquid. The winner of that is then going to go ahead and they're going to be facing off against, oh my God, my great podcast recording moment as my dog is currently begging me for pets. So I can't be pulling up the full bracket here. We've got Mouse Australis, Navi versus the winner of Mouse Australis, and then, the victors of all of those. So Liquid shot at this. You said you wanted before that you wanted to talk a little bit about Movistar Riders. So I will let you have your shot right now to talk about Movistar Riders.
I love Movistar Riders. Like I just like from getting to like see them and like how passionate they are when they're playing, it's insane. Like the run that they've had is so crazy. Like when they were playing against Navi for like top of that group, like I genuinely I believed. Like I was like they're gonna win this. Like it's gonna be insane, but they're gonna win this. Because they took a map off Navi. Like not many teams that are like above the level that Movistar have been playing have been capable of doing that lately. Like they kept it to a close series. Um, I think there's so much talent on that roster. I think they're riding on like all the confidence and momentum that they've gotten since like Valencia. And from talking with some bias, like the headline was, "We were not in a good place a month ago." So like seeing the turnover of we weren't in a good place a month ago to we're in the top six at the biggest tournament to finish out the season. We're like playing against Liquid, who like I'm very high on this Liquid team. I think that game could be a 2-0 for Liquid, 2-0 for Movistar, 2-1 either side. Like, I genuinely can't tell immediately how it's going to go, and I think it's going to be a very close and interesting game. But I think people who write off Movistar just because of the name or like just because they're not like as an impressive lineup on paper, I think they're going to get a big buff from this crowd as well. Because like, there's not a lot of NA fans over here.
Well, they
I'm
also have a land buff. They won Valencia. They are riding this confidence. They know how to play in front of a crowd. So
I
that's to
think
your point. It's a good
Cologne's
support.
a different beast though in terms of like crowd. Like you're gonna have more experience on the side of Liquid, which is probably why I would give the victory to Liquid because of
Okay.
the like the experience of like YEKINDAR even on stage has more. YEKINDAR alone has like more experience than these five guys in terms of big tournaments. I'm pretty sure, and like he's only been around properly for like what like a year or two now.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be a really, really interesting matchup. I hope Movistar don't get too nervous and don't get like the. I hope they don't get scared of the moment. That's like all I'm hoping
Do
for
you
because I
think
want a good game.
how do you think the 4 days plays into this? Do you think that the 4 days break between that end of the groups and now to the playoff bracket, do you think that has helped or hurt Movistar, given that they're at a stage that they really have never been at before? They're going to go in front of this crowd. They've never been, these players, they're the first Spanish team to do this. Like, is this helpful to maybe calm their initial nerves, formulate their game plan, figure it out of what they're going to do against Liquid, or does it give so many nerves right to that team that they're going to be freaking out the moment that they walk into the Lanxess?
I think it's a bit of both. I think like it's obviously not going to help like the anticipation of going into the stadium. Like it's not going to help in that sense, but it's also you're coming up against Liquid who have added a stand-in and Elige. Like our headline was, we've scrapped everything pretty much. So you get a chance to like really study your opponent with like the small bit of demos that you do have from this Liquid team since they got here with YEKINDAR. So I think it's a bit of both. Um, they seemed to just really be enjoying the moment and they were excited to like not many teams do get this chance to play on a stage like the Lanxess. So I think I really hope that they can just kind of hold on to this moment, like really enjoy themselves when they go out there. Because if it ends up in like a 2-0 demolition, it would be such a sad way for them to end the season. Like they can be
Yeah.
proud of what they did, but I'm just so excited for this matchup. Like I think it's going to be one of the best matches that we get of the tournament, honestly.
But who do you think wins this? Fundamentally,
Liquid, Liquid
Liquid.
2-1.
Okay.
Like
Yes.
That's my
Pass.
prediction
You
because of the
can't be a
experience.
co-host of the Dust2 report and not be in support of Liquid Ride or Die. Like,
It's
come on.
yeah, like I think the momentum on Movistar is insane, but like we have said, like there is a chance that they do get nervous and like they do like the difference between them and Liquid are Elige, NAF, Nitro, have all played at a stage where they're gonna go for those risky plays that we see from experienced LAN players, and I don't think Movistar is as likely to do that. So I think that's what gives Liquid the edge, but honestly, it could go either way.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll be interesting. I think Liquid is going to really benefit from this because they probably took a break on what the first day. Now they're going to be back in the lab. They're going to try and be figuring out positions. I'm imagining that they're screaming, watching demos. They've got to figure out what's caused Movistar to simply run over opponents recently, given their great, outstanding form. Um, I would be a little bit more optimistic. I would say a 2-0. I think then the problem is running into FaZe Clan, the current reigning major champs, probably the best team in the world. Like, can they really outdo them? I would give them like a
Um,
20% chance. I would say it's YEKINDAR buff. I would say it's new team buff. FaZe have like given these interviews where they're like, we're tired, we're exhausted. Like we need this break. Is this a time that Liquid like everyone apparently is feeling renewed on this team? Is this a real good opportunity for Liquid to sneak one by?
FaZe are far more beatable than Navi. Um,
Yes.
like
Well, I
we've
mean,
seen it from Rubet, like FaZe are losing to Big who go out like immediately at Cologne. Like they're not like they were dominant up until the major, but I think it happened with the major, like Carrigan, Rain getting their major after this long. It's hard to kind of keep it going. Like from looking at the
yeah,
results, like Dallas bombed against ENCE, like a team,
yeah,
ENCE and Cloud9, teams that you should be beating if you're the best team in the world. Losing to G2 is just kind of funny considering the state of G2 at the moment. Like losing to Navi, fine. Like you two are like the top two
yeah,
teams in the world undoubtedly. Um, FaZe here have been pretty confident. Like they've not played anyone special, like Spirit with a new opper, Zero Zero Nation, who we've already talked about a lot, and Astralis, who I'm just generally not high on
yeah.
anyway. Like I think the X factor for Astralis at this tournament has been the fact that Zipnix hasn't been dragging his heels, and like you don't have to like put him in your backpack and like carry him over the finish line. So like it's been good to see Zip kind of have some renewed form because like the dude hadn't been positive between like the major in Antwerp and Cologne last year. So
Yeah.
in terms of FaZe versus Liquid, if that is the matchup that we get, I think there's definite like you can't write off Liquid in that situation because when you think about it, both teams are run like from this very short time, Liquid have been closing out games and like dirty, nasty overtimes. Like they've been getting the
Yeah.
job done like when it gets tough. And that is what FaZe has been built on. Like their entire major run was them closing out tight games, closing out
Right.
overtimes that they shouldn't have been in. So I think that is like a super interesting matchup. I think that the final is like not realistically, but
Also, can we just talk about this really quickly? The finals of BO5. I am not watching a BO5. I cannot watch a BO5.
it's gonna be 3 maps anyways.
It's
So
going to be 3 maps anyways, no matter who it is. Like this is ridiculous. Why do we do this? Why do we continue to do this? The majors aren't BO5s. If a major is not a BO5, your dumb event should not be a BO5. Just
uh,
should not be.
it's an ESL thing that I think will probably change in the future, but I can't really speak on it. I don't know enough
It's
about
tough.
ESL and their kind of plans, but I like from their community reaction, it would be very surprising if that's the go-to still in the future.
Yeah.
But in terms of whoever does meet Navi in the final, I think Navi are going to be a tough team to beat, whether it's Liquid, whether it's FaZe, whether it's Movistar, if they somehow make this miracle run. Like I think Navi are like odds-on favorites to win this, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Let's move on to our conclusions overall of this. I think our conclusions here are from my side at least, Furia are in more trouble than I think we think they are. Uh Complexity need to make changes and they need to swing for the fences with Dexter. Liquid look like a brand new team and they're going to win all of IEM Cologne.
Now that is hopium.
That is hopium. What are your
Uh,
conclusions out of this?
my conclusions are, I hope that something can get sorted with YEKINDAR. If not, just for the fact it's YEKINDAR, but for the sake of Liquid, where they don't like play a game of like chicken this entire off season where they're like, oh, where are we going to get him? Are we going to be able to get him out? And then you're left with some random person that you're like not happy with. So I think that's what
Right.
happened last time. Like getting Shocks is fine, but I don't think Shocks was the plan all along. If I'm being honest, like when you look at the role overlap with the NAF and that never really properly getting sorted. So that for me is like I want to see Liquid kind of either get you in there or move on to a better solution fast. I don't want you to like stick around on it. Complexity, just like I don't know. Like it's easy to say make changes, but like just make the right changes.
Yeah,
Um
do a big thing, but make sure that you do it right, which really easy to say, really easy to
yeah,
do.
obviously yeah, we're the armchair analysts on this one, but
Exactly.
and finally I think Zero Zero Nation are an exciting prospect for the future. It's had like good signs here, so
Well, you'll love to see it. I think that's gonna do it from us here at the Dust2 report. The name still under consideration if we ever figure out how to really sit down and have a good brainstorming session over this. I'm Ryan Friend, Ryan at Dust2. That's Liam Slevin, also known as Slevo. He's at IEM Cologne. He's got interviews left up for us to get over playoffs, and he'll be providing our extended coverage. Make sure that you check out dust2.us for all of your North American centric coverage with a little bit of Brazilian articles here and there. With that being said, we will see you next episode. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. And yeah, see you guys later.